Welcome to another episode of Distory. My name is Kirk from Walrus Carp, and with me, as always, is the wonderful, talented author extraordinaire and man-eating plant expert, Skipper Kate. How are we doing, Disney Cicerone? Kate.
Hello, I am doing good. It's a man-eating plant expert. I'll take that. I love it.
I had a horrible joke. It's not good. Anyway, keep going.
Okay. So tonight I know we did the African Veldt last week, but tonight we are going to head and do like almost the second half of the African Veldt. We just
the
we
African
didn't want
pants.
to.
You can't have one without the other.
No, this is the what you could call the Lost Safari or the Trap Safari. It's had both names throughout its history. So I know that last week we were like debating, like, which one is it?
It's interchangeably used throughout all of the writings about it, concept art of it. I mean, they write certain things on certain different sides. So I don't know. It both count. In my head, I like to go with Trap Safari. And the only reason why I like Trap Safari is because, like, yeah, people might not know where they are, but they are stuck in that tree.
So I feel like it was mostly Lost Safari until it changed with the storyline, which we'll go over tonight. But I think that's when it became more of a Trap Safari versus a Lost Safari. So
yeah, honestly, the only time that I see Trap Safari written on anything is right in here. It says Trap Safari on, but this was when it was archived in 1970. The Mark Davis sketch for it was just basically like it looked like he did it with like a pencil in 20 seconds just to figure out like arrangement. Yeah, honestly, like the guy's so talented. It looks like it's mainly an arrangement of placement of where to put things in the Florida version. So, but it specifically says Trap Safari on it.
Yeah, I think that it's been used both ways. So I think either one is correct. So
there's no wrong way to have a rhino keep you up a pole.
So maybe we start with the very beginning with like, where did this idea for this come from?
I would love that.
I also love that Mark Davis said, I think the Trap Safari was probably the first laugh that Disneyland had in an attraction. So he created this because it was supposed to be advertising on the Disneyland Railroad.
Yeah, remember this was supposed to be like actually a railroad billboard, but it was so good. Are you going to read the quote that's on 66?
I'm not on page 66, but okay. Probably.
Okay. It's
I'm on a different page.
Oh no, a different page. Okay.
We're not on the same page.
We clearly not. I'm gonna open up. I'm gonna put the concept art.
Oh, okay. Okay, I got it. Okay.
Yep.
So it says, this is a quote from Mark Davis, and it says, "So I did a flock of different things, and one of the railroad advertisements I did was the Trap Safari. You can see this is reverse staging from what you see down there on the train because the train would go from right to left. Well, when Walt saw it, he said," I'm just gonna make this a little PG here. It's like, oh, heck no, Mark, that's too good. We got to put it inside the ride. Well, anyway, it became the Trap Safari that you see today. So while he was still alive, we did complete the changes on the Jungle River Cruise ride. It's kind of gratifying to go through there with a crowd of people that still laugh after all this length of time, which is asking an awful lot of some guys up in a tree. Walt appreciated good humor. He appreciated the good use of a gag. In other words, it fit like a glove, and he laughed like heck at it. As a matter of fact, if you got him to laugh, it felt like getting medals. Really, I'm not joking. So, what we mean by railroad advertising was, you have to remember that back in 1955, when this ride first opened, even back into the 1960s, they had tickets that you would purchase for an attraction. First, in 1955, when it opened, was a individual ticket for each attraction. Later, it became ticket books. Of October 1955, that's when they started having a book of tickets that you could buy for the attractions, right? Which we talked about when we did the queue. But So they would advertise their rides to get you to go on them. They would have like the Barker Bird for the Tiki Room would try to call you in and entice you to go see the Tiki Room. The reason they had all of this was because they wanted you to convince you to spend your ticket or spend money and go on that ride. So this was originally meant for, the Trap Safari was originally meant for the railroad. And that's why he says we had to reverse the staging, because when you would go on it, you would, when the train would go by, you would see the rhino first and then the pole. So that's what they see here. But when they put it in the Jungle Cruise, because of the direction you're going, they reversed it, which made sense. So yeah, that's where the concept comes from for the Trap Safari. And there's a quote also I have from Gibson that says, "The Trap Safari was Mark's concept right down to the rhino poking the guy in the butt." We are very busy at that time, but I had a big group of sculptors at that time, including at Disneyland, where I recall most of that work being done. So he had a little bit of help putting that together.
I love seeing the side by side on the concept art, because it shows the fluidity of motion with the black rhino reaching up, doing a little tappity with the horn.
Oh gosh. Yeah, and I feel like we also had this one too, which you showed earlier, but here I'll put it side by side maybe with that one.
Nope.
Oh no, you just went to that same one I had.
Nope. I'm back.
So you can see this is his earlier sketch of it, and you do see there's a few animals around, including we have the hyena, which the hyenas we talked about did come over from the African veldt. They were originally going to be in the veldt. And instead they added them to this because they are laughing. And so they're laughing at this guy getting poked by this rhino.
I love how...
I think is clever.
So you actually do have in this book the sketch of the laughing hyenas being migratory and being moved over here. And then, of course, this is when they were over in the African veldt, and it's just Walt petting a hyena.
I love that one here, and then you have
there's,
him with
Blaine
the
Gibson.
rhino too. Well, with the rhino.
Oh my gosh, too funny. I love also, I never could really figure out, but I can guesstimate that the average height of this is probably somewhere in the 30-ish feet. The only reason why I say that is like most stories, and this looks like a factory one, it's about, or floors would be roughly anywhere between 10 and 12 feet. So I'm assuming it's somewhere around 30 feet high total.
I
like
love
how
this one.
There's guests like actively on the boat, and they're just like a giant ladder as they're doing the install.
Well, and look at the guy who's up on the ladder. Okay, like he looks.
Why does he have a bow tie?
Catering. He's like catering a fancy lunch or something.
Was he working at the plaza and he like came over? He's like, "Hey, you could climb a ladder. Get up there," and fix his fedora. It fell off.
I don't know. You know, it had to be staged. Like all of this was absolutely staged for publicity. So that must be why they have the group of people back there, because they're like, "Oh, we should have a boat going by," So, part of me wonders if this isn't like maybe some people from WED, in the boat, because it's probably a staged publicity shot.
Maybe,
but it's too hard to tell.
Yeah,
if you zoom in, I can't really make out their faces. But yeah, this guy's going to a white jacket, black tie affair.
Yeah, what is he doing?
It's crazy.
A very fancy man. Like, look, he's got dress shoes on. It's ridiculous. It's like they're shiny too. Oh well.
So you will notice that these. So there's a little story behind the original ones that are on the pole for the Trap Safari. The backstory is the Lost Safari was a group led by one white explorer and 4 of his African affiliates through the African veldt of North Africa along the Nile River at some point prior to 1936. The party came under attack by an angry rhino, which chased them up a tree in the veldt. At some point following the 1911-1916, the safari was sought after by the Jungle Navigation Company boat called the Zambezi Miss, which included the likes of riverboat captain Charlie Allnut and his wife Rose Sayer. Now, those might sound familiar to you because in the very beginning of this series, when we talked about where the concept for the Jungle Cruise came from, we discussed the African Queen, and these are the characters that are in the African Queen. So, if you remember,
they'll come back in a second too. I have a great photo from Skipper Canteen, including the Trap Safari.
Yours is in Skipper Canteen, or is it in Bengal Barbecue?
Oh, Bengal Barbecue.
Is this one? Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one I was going to pull up.
Yeah. So this is the one you can see in the behind these two. This is Charlie Allnut and Rose Sayer, but this is a doctored photo. So we've got little Albert the monkey, and we have a picture of Dr. Albert Falls on the table, and behind them you will see the Trapped Safari. So that's why that picture exists, is because of this backstory. And they're in the Zambezi Miss. But this is an actual photo from a still from the movie that then they doctored up and added all these things to.
Every time I look at that, I think that that's you and I on the Jungle Cruise.
It really is. Oh my God.
It's so,
right?
It's like, that is, if that's not, and of course you're by Albert the monkey. I feel like that's fair.
Yeah, I feel like at some point we have to do a bound with these kinds of outfits, because I feel like it would be
I need to pick up some loafers at some point.
Loafers and boat shoes.
Mm-hmm.
I need a fancy, like, Victorian-esque outfit.
Just go in your closet. You already have it.
Just go in my closet. Oh my gosh.
Okay. Do you have anything else? Backdrop storyline. I want to do like history of this style of safari.
Yes.
Okay.
So I have one quote that was through the walkthrough with Walt, that was from Bob Sewell. He said, Walt put on a riotous verbal description of what the action would be, with the bottom hunter getting goosed. One of us had a high, funny laugh, and Walt heard it and said, "That's it. Let's have all the hyenas laugh like that." So that's where the hyenas laugh comes from, is from one of them laughing at Walt's antics, acting out the scene, which I think is hilarious. And I do have stuff all about the different characters, like from what they look like here, but we could put that in with when we do what they are now. We can do kind of a comparison.
Are you sure you don't want to do it now?
I mean, we can do it now.
Yeah.
It's fine. So there's actually two versions of this. If you look in some of these pictures, like Kirk has one of the ones with the fezzes there, but there's another version that I'm pretty sure was more of a Walt Disney World version from what I could see. And they had slightly different characters. So they look like this, and they have a little bit more character to them. So that's not just the white person on the top and then all of the others. They're a little bit more characters to them. So let me pull up my notes on that. So the leader was at the top in the version that I have here, was the white colonial explorer who led the expedition. The fez man who was right below him was a man likely of African or Middle Eastern ethnicity who was a member of the safari. Then they had the guides. So it says Disneyland's Jungle Cruise showed the safari having 4 guides. So that's what you were looking at here. While the Magic Kingdom showed only 1. Regardless, they are African locals who each wore a fez. So if you saw them wearing a fez, they were considered a guide on the team. And then there was an older white man who traveled with food supplies, possibly implying him to be a cook, and a photographer, but was a member of safari that traveled with photography equipment, and then a low man on the totem pole who was getting goosed. So, yes, that's what you can see there. You can see the one that is in like yellow has the photography gear. The one that is in the blue shirt has the cookware. The guide has the fez, and then you have this kind of like guy in the bottom who's just in a bad way. So those are some of the original kind of characters. But in the Disneyland's version, when it opened in 1955, it was just like the guy on the top and his guides on the bottom with all of the fezzes on. Those are the original characters. And I do have, this is an actual postcard from Disneyland from around that same time. So you can see all of the guides. And you can see how the vegetation is so much smaller than it is now, which I think is interesting. And then I have the trap safari on the back of the postcard. This is what it says. It says a hunting party finds itself trapped by an angry rhinoceros while hungry hyenas hopefully await a chance to share in the prey. One of the many surprises in store for Disneyland guests as they cruise down the rivers of the world in Adventureland. I think it's funny that they change the name of the river like all the time. The rivers of romance, rivers of adventure.
Well, I mean, come on, it's their river. They can do whatever they want.
It's true. They can call it what they want.
Because we're just showing postcards, I want to show a postcard. Can you pull up your postcard?
Yes. Yeah, they're different.
They are different. So you can see how sparse. You can see how sparse our postcard is. Like there's like nothing behind it. There's no plants. You know, it's like has not filled in. But when you look at this is from Walt Disney World. Let me scroll this out just a little bit. And this is from dated 1972. I love this.
All right.
And it's got an Eisenhower stamp. How cool is that?
That is great.
Hi, Linda. We saw this, talking about the trap safari, which it does say down here. Hunters become the hunted as a angry rhinoceros sends rhinoceros.
Rhinoceros. That's close enough.
Rhinoceros sends an African safari scrambling for high ground. One of the many surprises in store for guests aboard Explorers launches on the Adventureland Jungle Cruise. Hi, Linda. We saw this on the Jungle boat ride, and elephants, alligators, snakes was really good. Disneyland is something to see. Mind you, this is written on a Walt Disney World. You got to remember, though, this is like the second year, right? So like 1971, this is January 15, 1972. It's only been a few months open. People are so used to Disneyland. Disneyland is something to see. We rode the monorail, steam engine train, saw animated birds and flowers sing. Was a real hot sunny day. Love, Mel, Diane, Kay, and Susie from Wisconsin.
Wow, what a find.
Isn't that a good one?
That's great.
I love that. This is like basically what anyone would write today now. Was a real hot sunny day. Yeah, welcome to Florida.
They saw a lot of animals, so
they sure did. They sure. The Vacation Kingdom of the World, Walt Disney World, Florida. The Vacation Kingdom of the World.
That's interesting how they were marketing it, you know?
Yeah. I thought that was cool. What else you got?
Well, I have a few of the radio before we get into like the storyline, the current storyline. I have some of the radio from the queue, which we've talked about in previous episodes. So in Disneyland, we had Nigel Greenwater would be on the radio that you would hear in the queue. And he mentioned how the safari is the most frequently spotted lost safari in history, which has remained lost for longer than any other frequently spotted safari. And then there's also Robert A. Wall's radio spiel for the Magic Kingdom's version of the Jungle Cruise for this. They say the survival tip of climbing the nearest tree when confronted with a charging rhino. So that's just, what they talk about there. So those are the references to the Trap Safari in the queue before they redid it. And now we have...
Hang on. You missed do you have the rest of the quote?
No.
Oh my God. Oh my, Kate, you missed the best part of the joke.
I'm sorry.
And now for today's survival tip. When confronted by a charging rhino, head for the nearest tree and climb fast. Failure to follow these instructions may result in pointed conversations.
Ah,
you missed the best part.
Bummed that I didn't have that.
Oh, it's okay. I got it. I got
criminal.
You. Come on. I got you.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I have that, and then I have a lot of things on the new the new story and the new backstory. Do you have anything before we launch into that you want to go
Oh my
into?
gosh, do I have more?
Okay.
So much more.
Let's
Not
hear
really.
it.
It's not that much more, but I do have to, I do.
I was like, I'm just gonna lean back, let you go.
You should, as you should. Going back to now, this is the Disneyland version with this white hunter and the safari guides on the tree. Well, this was a very common theme in the early 20th century. This idea of, and it literally is called a white hunter. So this was in the 1900, this picture of a rhino that was killed. However, like this became like big game hunting became a thing. Like if you're a fan of Jumanji and you remember that guy who's running around in the same style hat that we know and talk about earlier in other episodes, like it's the exact same thing. Big game hunting, white guy going out into the. So this is in 1909. This is Teddy Roosevelt, who apparently took down an elephant, which is awful in so many ways. But this was the president of the United States doing this style of big game hunting. So it's just, I know that's awful. I know it's terrible, but it was certainly a trope. So that's the reason why we actually get like somebody hiring somebody, which honestly happens still so much today. Like there was that big controversy of that one dentist who like lured out a lion. There also was, you see it a lot in mountain climbing, particularly for Everest. I used to study a lot about Everest because I just was really enthralled with the concept of actually climbing it. And there are so many paid excursions that essentially just drag the rich person up. And it's like the worst thing ever, but it happens so consistently now. So it's like interesting that still some of those things still kind of exist and are certainly social status symbols.
Well, we also have that hunter here for this a railroad advertisement, although he's in hot water.
He's clear. Kate, you made it funny. Nice.
Every once in a while.
Well, you know, as they say about that guy, good soup.
Good soup.
Oh, I also found.
I don't think that soup would be very good.
No, it'd be disgusting. You know, what is that? What is that, minestrone? Come on, that was good. That was good. Clever. I found this Carousel. So this was a 1999, and this was from Disneyland. Here's an updated or a closer one with Mickey, Minnie, Goofy, Donald, and Pluto. So the Fab Five up the Rhino trapped safari. And then, interestingly enough, there's crocodiles. We have our temple head. You have the snake, and then back here, it's a monkey. But I don't know. He kind of looks a little bit. It's not Donald, but he kind of looks like a little bit like Donald.
Yeah, it's interesting. You have Schweitzer Falls kind of in the background too.
Yeah. I mean, they were like, just cram it all in there, whatever you got.
Like anything that might remotely look like the Jungle Cruise, just put it in there.
Right. Just throw it in there and we'll figure it out. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I got. I also I found this. This is in Skipper Canteen. It's you know that bulletin board, and this is the Walt Disney World version. But I didn't have a picture of it. I had a video. The video went like real quick over it, so you couldn't get details. But this is sitting in the pinned board, and it says Skipper Will drew this, and it's funny because clearly somebody put it on a table because there's a coffee cup stain or ring around it.
I love that detail. Yeah. That's so great.
But this is in the Skipper Canteen. Yep.
I love that.
Oh, that's funny. Allie Beth goes, no, that's not Minestrone. That guy's name is Stu.
Stu. That was a good one.
That's a great one. Oh my gosh, it's a wonderful one.
Well done.
Well, I'm sure he was too.
Was he well done?
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. So in terms of big game hunter, I feel like we should mention this too, because this is on, if you are reading along with us in Mark Davis, in his own words, You can find this on page 79. This is actually like an unused concept that has that. Maybe you can hold it up for me because
I got you.
This is an unused concept of a game hunter. So here's a quote from it. I've always kind of enjoyed this simply because it was a thing I didn't use. And again, it's giving yourself the thing of having more than one choice. So I thought this would be kind of funny. We came along and had a setup kind of like this with the great white British hunter and his pointer elephant. And then you'd go past there and past some bushes and then you'd hear a gunshot. And then the other side, there was this tiger and he had no fur on his behind. He was looking back and was very upset, which I think is so funny as a gag. Like, he's just like, you just blew my fur off.
Yep. It's a good visual.
But again, so like this hunter.
Well, don't you feel like that gag was used so many times in like cartoons?
Yeah, for sure.
That was so frequently used.
It was a common one. So, yeah. And I will say that a lot of these quotes have some very colorful language in them. I often have to like amend it a little bit to keep it family friendly.
Yeah.
Even with Walt.
I mean, I imagine there was lots of swearing in the creative process, which I don't know. I'm sure. I can understand that.
Well, I remember reading about in Disney Studios back in like the 1930s and 40s when they first started hiring women, they would tell them like, you have to get used to the fact that there's coarse language here and we're not going to like, clean it up for you. So you're just going to have to deal with it. That's just part of our culture. So this is kind of around. It's been that way.
That's a part of the deal.
It's part of the deal. Anyway, so should we talk about the characters, the transformation from what it was to what it is now?
Let's do it.
Okay. So each one of these characters that we have now, this change happened in 2021. So it's pretty recent. It was one of those cultural sensitivity changes away from the storyline of this great white hunter and his compatriots. So so they have a few different new characters that we have been already tying into a lot of the storyline with the Jungle Cruise all the way through the queue. So some of this will sound familiar to you because we've already started talking about them. But from the top down, let's just start at the top. We have Siobhan Puffin Murphy. Puffin is like her nickname. Siobhan Puffin Murphy. She grew up in Dingle, Ireland. There's lots of sheep there, which is a seaside town where she took a liking to the puffins as she watched them nesting there. So that's why she gets her name Puffin. She is happy. She's a distant cousin of Alberta Falls. So she's a cousin of Alberta. And she's happy to be in the position she is on the pole, which is close to a family of nesting birds. And so the character that this used to be, I should have put this up earlier, but the character that it used to be has the same face mold as one of the duelists from the Haunted Mansion. Let me see if I can pull that up to show you. This is what he used to be. And then the face here, it was of this duelist from the Haunted Mansion. They used the same mold. And this face might also look familiar to you because it's the same mold for
the auctioneer.
The auctioneer.
Now, wait. So you're saying Siobhan Murphy is the auctioneer?
No. This is the character that she replaced.
Oh, the used to. Okay.
Yeah. So that would be this one, the Great White Hunter dude, had the same face, but she does not. She has her own unique one. And here is her concept art for this, beside what she turned out to be.
Did you say that her nickname was Puffy because she loves puffins?
Puffins. No, her nickname is Puffin.
Really? I had it as Puffy.
Not Puffy. Puffy?
Mm-hmm.
I have Puffin.
Well, I know she's...
Puffy sounds insulting.
No. It led to her being given the nickname of Puffy is what I have.
She does have nice hair. I agree.
Yeah.
For being like up a tree. But they also say she's a little bit like ditzy. She's kind of like not scared of the situation because she's enthralled with these birds. I wouldn't say she's ditzy so much. It's just like she's just very excited about her birds.
She is a very excitable ornithologist. I mean, is that so wrong? And also in this back little satchel, it does say "Birds of the Jungle."
Yeah, so she is the bird watcher.
Club 33. There was a period where they had a tiki takeover, and there was a boarding pass for her to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, all the way to Brazil on a airline called Plane Crazy Airlines. And her cocktail was the kingfisher, which the kingfisher is a style, or it's a species of bird that's known for catching fish. And it was cachaça, which cachaça is a Brazilian, I think it's a sugar-based, like a sugarcane style liqueur with pineapple, lime, and rainforest blend, which I'm assuming is pog juice.
Yeah. We're going to Dr. Kan Chunosuke, which I think is how we pronounce that. Dr. Kan Chunosuke, who is an entomologist. Alberta noticed the C logo of the club stenciled on the back of his backpack, so that's how they have a connection. Then she decided to invite him in on a jungle cruise, and he was happy to oblige in hopes of finding the mythical, I'm going to not say this right, myrmecoleon, a type of legendary beast that either resembles part lion and part ant or feeds on ants. So a mythical animal. So yeah, so you can see he's got the butterfly net. He's got the butterfly. So that's where we've seen the butterflies. We already seen those in the queue, and we see them later on in the attraction as well with the monkeys. But Kan Chunosuke.
And fun fact, his surname Chunosuke comes from a historic 18th century Japanese seaman who was famous for being stranded as a castaway.
Oh, that's interesting.
We are castaways. Here's his. The Blossoms of Edo, Japanese whiskey, Tuzu, tangerine, spice, and smoke. And he was going from Canada to Japan. But the Blossoms of Edo. Also, what was the name of that animal? Now I feel like I have to look this thing up. And I didn't see that in my research, so if you can help me spell it, that would be helpful.
Myrmecoleon.
The
myrmecoleon.
The myrmecoleon. I mean, everybody knows the myrmecoleon. I mean, it's the classic antlion that we all have looked for. This is listen, this is going to be very scary. So if you're squeamish, watch out. This is a 1491 edition of a myrmecoleon from Hortus Sant.
What is that?
I don't know. This is by Jacob Meidenbach in 1491, which, I mean, this was like the this
part lion, part ant.
This was like the human centipede of their time. So in 1491, this was horrific. Wait, hang on. Let me go. Let me try to see. Let me try to find another picture of a myrmecoleon. Okay, this is ridiculous. Who's coming up with this? All right. This is okay. I didn't bet any of this, but just enjoy for your.
Oh my gosh, what is that?
The best one? This is clearly like somebody did an awful Photoshop job of just the giant ant on his head. It looks like Jeff Bridges. So yeah, your normal. I mean, I would get on a safari for that, wouldn't you?
That's what he's after. That's what he's looking for with that butterfly net.
It's the main attraction for him.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh. I will never, ever see him the same way on the Jungle Cruise.
You're gonna be like, what's wrong with him? Why did he think this existed? Apparently,
Oh
this
my
was
gosh.
so size-wise, it's about roughly the size of like up to from about why am I saying this? 4'8" all the way up to 5'4"
Oh my
size.
gosh. That's
And
gigantic.
and it supposedly roamed all the way as far north as lower England and all the way into Algeria and Egypt and Morocco, but all over Europe, Spain, Portugal, Italy, and even through Israel. So yeah,
Oh my
the
gosh.
classic ant lion.
Trying to recover. So Dr. Chunosuke was looking for a antlion hybrid.
Of course he was. Why wouldn't he?
Oh my gosh, I can't.
So he clearly likes bugs. That's what he's into. He's a bug
Big
man.
fan. And he's got all those little cages. He's ready to capture all of these specimens and then go pin them on his boards when he gets home. Just like he was in the queue of Disneyland. So
right, because his collection, his insect collection, are on display in that Disneyland queue.
Mm-hmm. And it also alludes to it in the Skipper Canteen with the big wall of butterflies as well. That would be connecting back to this character. Do you have anything else for Dr. Chonosuke?
One thing that I love is I love that his satchel, his bag, actually says S.E.A. Also, it looks like he's getting kicked in the head right here.
Well, yeah, that's part of his storyline because Alberta noticed the logo on his backpack and then invited him along.
I just love that it's actually there versus, anything else. Like, it's like they could have just left that out, but yeah.
Yeah.
But there you go. There he is. No, I got nothing else on him.
Okay. So moving down the ladder, the pole, so to speak, is the our favorite here, Rosa Soto Dominguez. So Rosa, she is a Mexican artist said to be on her way back home to Mexico City from her latest gallery opening in Paris, where she received a special invitation to go on a jungle cruise from her good friend Alberta. She was the one that replaced the photographer, so the one we saw earlier. And she has an art easel on her back in Walt Disney World, but that art easel is not on her back in Disney, or at least not the same one in Disneyland. It's actually hanging in the queue of Disneyland versus on her back. So I'm not really sure why that's a little bit different, Disney World to Disneyland, but they are. You can see this is the Disney World version, I believe, with her art easel on her back. Mm-hmm. She looks very concerned about what's going on here. I don't know if I have a Disneyland one handy, but this is the photographer. So this is who she replaced on the pole. So I love that they kind of replaced it like an artist with an artist, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
They retained a little bit of that storyline. But Rosa, we also talked about earlier, has she painted a beautiful picture of Alberta Falls that is in both the Skipper Canteen and in the queue for Disneyland.
Yeah, it's an abstract one.
Yeah, here, I got it. So this is the one she painted. And you can see how inspiration falls behind her. But that's of her good friend Alberta. And then you can see this is in Disneyland's queue. It says La Rosa Soto Dominguez, Mexico City, Mexico. So it's hanging in the queue versus on her back.
Yeah, I love that. That's a cool one.
Yeah. And we'll see all these characters have more pieces to this that show up later in the attraction, but we're just going to hold off on talking about more of those pieces until we get there.
Now, La Rosa in the Global Charters Atlantic Lines in the 1940s, and this was supposed to take her from Cairo to Progreso, Mexico, and it's paired with a drink called La Artista, which had tequila, yuzu, lemon, flauernum, and the Rosa blend, which I'm not sure what that would entail. She had her own drink too.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I think we need to move on to the Mossman prophecies.
The Moss Man. So moving down, we have Leonard Moss, who's a botanist. He's a noted botanist from Nova Scotia, Canada. Moss can be seen with a lot of camera gear as he's intended to capture the diverse flora of Adventureland. He also wears a carnivorous plants on his back in Walt Disney World, but that same pack is at the exit of Disneyland, so it's not on his back. So it's interesting that like they replaced the artist with a photographer, but it looks like they were going to replace him as a photographer here, but instead they put it, yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, here's his concept art. But I don't know why it's not in his back in Disneyland. I've wondered that. It's interesting that it's in the queue. It's like they put a lot of the stuff in the queue versus on the. That might be a good question for Kevin Lively. Why didn't you put it here in Disneyland?
Yeah, it was interesting.
And those carnivorous plants, just in case you guys missed any of that, what those are was an original concept from Mark Davis, that he wanted carnivorous plants in the attraction back in the 1960s as an addition. And people just thought it was not a good concept. So they said, no, they can't have them. So we didn't have there it is. The carnivorous plants never came to pass until this attraction updates in 2021. Kevin Lively actually fought for getting them back in the attraction in a slightly different way, but they're there. They're in the queue, and they're also as part of Leonard Moss's storyline. So they're in the beginning of the queue for Disney World. They're at the end of the queue for Disneyland, and they're also here on the Trap Safari.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the Feed Me Seymour phase. Yes, it was before that movie came out.
I know. If only they could have capitalized on that. They would have been way before that Broadway show.
I know.
You know, they could have been like, "Hey, this was our idea. Beat it." What was what's his drink? I do have something else on him. He was Buena Vista Airlines. The Orchid Islands, which is Baijiu, coconut, lime, and green tea cream.
Mm-hmm. That sounds good.
Yeah. I mean, all these things are like tiki cocktails and whatnot. So,
yeah.
All right. You ready to buckle up and go to Tangent City? Because I'm ready for it.
Oh, you found a rabbit hole?
Oh, did I?
Down the rabbit hole?
Oh, did I? And we can't
I'm ready.
do it. We can't. I'm getting an echo on you.
I've had an echo this whole time. I don't know.
Have you really?
Literally any time I am in multi-guest, I get the same echo. It's just some weird TikTok quirk that I haven't been able to solve.
Are we in multi-guest, or are we in, what is the other thing?
Whatever we're at. When I'm with another person, I get an echo. It doesn't do it when I'm alone. It just does it when I'm with another person. Yeah, okay. It's a TikTok flaw.
Okay. I'll stop talking about
it. I'm frustrated. It's very frustrating.
I know. That's why
there's nothing I can do about it.
I know. That's why I don't want to talk about it. Okay, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
We love carnivorous plants here, and we love Mark Davis. Let's take a journey to Walt Disney World at a potential walkthrough paid additional attraction that would not have been located at Walt Disney World or at one of the parks. This would have been located at Fort Wilderness, of all places. So the concept was originally that they were going to build something that was called a massive red barn, which was going to sit in this kind of like down home atmosphere of Wilderness Lodge. And the thought was, let's make a kind of an indoor Tom Sawyer Island. In 1976, because Fort Wilderness was one of the original marquee opening day resorts in 1971. But by 1976, the Red Barn was gone, but they had really kind of flushed out another idea that you're going to love this. And I'm not going to go too much. The Adventure House deserves its own thing. Like it really deserves its own thing. But let me flip this around so I can show you what it looks like. But welcome to the Roost. which
Oh yeah.
you could tell it kind of has a it's supposed to be a fancier, fine hotel in the wilderness, which I kind of think is what Wilderness Lodge kind of turns out to be. But this also has very much Phantom Manor kind of feel to it, Haunted Mansion almost with some of the spires. There's all of these are chickens, by the way. Every single one of these is a chicken weather vane. Lots of chickens.
I think we need a few more chicken weather vanes. Just one more. Just add a few more.
Now,
You never have enough.
this was going to be a $6 attraction that is completely separate. It would have audio animatronics, and you would walk through at your own pace. Up at the top, you would be greeted by Jasper and Maud. And Jasper and Maud were the owners and proprietors before they passed away. Here they're seen as ghosts. Jasper was like an inventor, and we see a lot of his inventions within this actual house itself. Maud was his spouse, but also she loved taking care of animals and particularly chickens. And throughout this entire house would be chickens everywhere because in the wilderness, the chickens were being eaten. They didn't want them eaten, so they put them into the house. So they're like all over this place. But think of this
like
being
the
like
decor of the 1990s in the kitchens. Remember when chickens are like what you'd have in your kitchen?
It was very much like that. What's crazy about this too is it was like a fun house. Like think upside down, tilted, stretching scenes, all this craziness. And you're going to go like, why on earth are we talking about this? And I don't want to spend this much time on it. Fair. Okay. Well, we're moving along.
I don't think any of us ever say that here. We're like, I'm fascinated.
Look at this attic.
It's like a haunted house with chickens.
It's a haunted house with chickens. And there's attic scenes, and there's scary, loud sounding snores, and a gator in a bathtub, and a tilting room that literally bounced, and a hall of mirrors that you had to, like a mirror maze. And there was a chicken in one of the mirror mazes. Anyway, I digress. This deserves its own episode or two, but this is all Mark Davis for the most part. Not one, not two, but several man-eating plants. How
I
amazing.
love it.
So all the man-eating plants in this concept art, there was a bunch.
So he was like, if you're not going to let me have my one man-eating plant, here's a whole bunch of them for you.
Well, what I thought was cool is look what we have, kind of like what we have in the actual Jungle Cruise, like more of that style, like bulbous, round, spherical versus, the goofy kind of Muppety style carnivorous plant. So yeah,
That's so interesting.
yeah. I'm not gonna lie. There is so much about the Adventure House that like I just want to spew it, but I cannot. I will contain it.
Need its own little
Oh my gosh!
episode.
Oh my gosh! It does.
I want to do some more research into that because that sounds
Well,
fascinating.
I'm heading there on Monday, and I am going to try to figure out where they were going to put it. So,
To Wilderness Lodge?
yeah,
Wilderness, not Lodge, Wilderness, Fort Wilderness.
Fort Wilderness.
Yeah.
Fort Wilderness.
Well, if you
Lodge.
go there,
Fort Wilderness.
I want to go to
Lodge
Fort Wilderness and
House.
find where the lawnmower tree used to be, because I know it doesn't exist anymore. But I think there's like a little plaque that's supposed to be there that shows the lawn, because there was like a tree that grew up around a lawnmower that someone left. Anyway,
The lawnmower tree. You'll have to send me a message so that I can look for it. I'll look for the plaque. Hi, I'm looking for the lawnmower tree, cast member. They're like, please, can you leave? Can you please leave?
please can you?
Like,
There's got to be a cast member there that would be like, absolutely. I've been waiting my whole life for someone to ask about the lawnmower tree.
My whole life, show the lawnmower tree.
Okay, so we did Leonard Moss, the botanist. We have one more lovely character at the bottom of the totem pole here, the bottom of the pole, which would be the one and only Skipper Felix Peckman the Eighth is his full name. So Skipper Felix Peckman is the low man on the pole. His surname really precedes him in the story. So Peckman, the last name, literally means man with bad luck.
Yeah, well,
He does have that.
He's the one getting the pokey pokes, so I would assume.
One of my favorite things about Skipper Felix is that you notice it says the Quango Kate around this one. And in Disneyland, it says the Mekong Maiden. And these are the names of the respective boats that we see crashed later. But he's supposed to be the like skipper. But his like he's got the life preserver on. It's just like he like is he just being selfish to make sure he doesn't drown? Like can he not swim? Like there's a whole story with that life preserver there, you know? It's like and he definitely didn't go down with his ship.
The good thing that I would say is well, why would he even have it? Because like think about this, right? Like if they had gotten off the ship, it's not like the ship was sinking. The ship was fine, right? They got off and the rhino chased them up the tree. So he was already like carrying this. I wonder if he can't swim.
That's what I said. Like
entirely
I feel like
swim.
Maybe he can't swim. Yeah.
You know?
It could be. But so the character that used to be at the bottom here, this one looked like this. And this face might look a little bit familiar to you because this one was the same one that is in the Haunted Mansion as our good friend, Silas.
Yo, Silas, all right, ready? No joke. How many people do you think know that his name is Silas Crump, the caretaker from the Haunted Mansion?
Only people that have listened to Distory and our Haunted Mansion series, but this would be the caretaker is who we're talking about. So yeah, probably not many.
I feel like it's under 1,000 in the entire world. And that's probably a lot. It might even be less than like 150.
Yeah. Yeah. And so Felix, yes, he does. It does say Kate on it because it says the Quango Kate, which is the boat that went down.
Quango Kate.
But yeah, there's my name on it, which I love. You can't really see that though from the attraction. Like you
have to look back, but like the way that they angled it, they didn't angle it really well, you know. So his look of horror of getting poked too. It's
funny. It's clever. But yeah, the man with bad luck, that would be our Skipper Felix.
That would be. Now, I do have just a little bit more, not a crazy backstory, but we did see Skipper Felix, his resume on the desk in Alberta's office in the queue, and it was like all the places he had been fired from. So if you go back to our Q episode, you can find all of the occupations and things. But he originally is from, and one of the few that's originally from Florida, and he's from Silver Springs. And if you wanted to see what Silver Springs looks like, it's really, really pretty, like crystal kind of bayou-esque vibe. And if you are not familiar with the area, Silver Springs is in or just by Ocala. So in terms of like distance and location and all that stuff, Ocala is up here in the north, and Walt Disney World is right down here. So it's about an hour and a half from Walt Disney World is where Skipper Felix originally came from.
Christina says there's monkeys up there too.
What, at Silver Lake?
Silver Springs?
Silver Springs?
Silver Springs. Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Monkeys. Well, you know what happened? Actually, you know what? I actually know some history on this. There was, is it Homosassa? So we went to this natural park called Homosassa, but it like a lot of springs or historic state parks in Florida, a lot of them were prior times they were viewed, especially in like the 18/1900s, as like health remedy lakes and before they became like recreation areas. And at Homosassa, they had in this river, they had an island that they put animals. It's actually, they have the oldest in captivity hippopotamus of any area is at Homosassa. This thing's like super, super old. And they weren't able to move him. And to give him, they had to do something. They had to make him a Florida citizen so that they could take care of him better. Like there was some sort of weird law.
Really?
But there's an island that was called Monkey Island. And they literally put monkeys in there. The monkeys got off the island and there's monkeys in the region.
Interesting.
So I'm sure it's something similar with that in Silver Springs. And I know that's like a long-winded way to get there, but it's true. This is like
Yeah.
real Florida history, real life, not
Yeah,
just
Christina
Disney.
says the monkeys are wild and they'll jump into people's boats. So.
Yeah, but I'm sure those monkeys didn't show up. They probably were put there as an attraction piece and then got wild and then became a part of the natural environment.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, going back to the Jungle Cruise a little bit, I want to say about all of these people, I have a whole bunch of more backstory just in general of how they got to where they're at, but I love that it says they did one of the things you're never supposed to do, which is leave the boat, and like that's showing their crisis. But I was reading an interview with Chris Beatty and about their backstory, and so this is what he said. He said, at some point between 1911 and 1936, a safari expedition was lost along the Veldt. This lost safari supposedly remained lost for longer than any other safari in known history. At some point in time, the members of the safari were chased up a tree or totem pole by angry rhinoceros. This safari was sought after by the Jungle Navigation Company boat Zambezi Miss, which included the likes of riverboat captain Charlie Allnut and his wife Rose Sayer. In 1938, Jungle Navigation Company president Alberta Falls arranged for a VIP jungle cruise tour through the Nile River aboard the Quango Kate, under one Felix Peckman VIII. This tour included the likes of Siobhan Murphy, Rosa Soto Dominguez, Dr. Leonard Moss, and Dr. Kon Chunosuke. When Peckman's piloting was interrupted by Siobhan's interest in an exotic bird, he wrecked the Quango Kate along the Nile River of North Africa. The marooned passengers likewise found themselves in the Veldt, where they were chased up a tree by a rhinoceros. So
you want to
a little Siobhan's problem. She was distracted by a bird.
Well, let's get nerdy with it because we can't just stop here. So Siobhan is looking at a oxpecker nest, which is an African bird, and this is on the Jungle Cruise, but this is what the actual nests look like. They are an upside down nest. An upside down nest typically means that there's a shelving system inside. If you actually go to Disney's Animal Kingdom and you go through the Gorilla Falls, like little tiny trek hike thing they have back there, there are these golden weavers, and they make upside down nests as well. And then these guys they look like this. These little, although they make them look very different in the Jungle Cruise because they're not all yellow. The oxpeckers, they make them really, really yellow, but in actuality, it's just their beaks that are very yellow and
not
red.
That at all. Like they have a different kind of nest.
It's like whatever that is. But I mean,
because that's what we heard, that there was oxpeckers in the African Veldt, so that is where they are. So yeah. I was wondering where they were, but that makes sense now.
To me, the reason why why they drew them or painted them like this is because you wouldn't be able to see them otherwise, right? Like if you painted them like this, the most vibrant part of them is their beak, so you really need them to look bigger than that. So if you want to impress your friends, tell them that Siobhan Murphy is looking at oxpeckers. So there you go. Impress your friends.
She is very, very interested in them.
She crashed the thing, like how excited do you have to be to crash a whole entire boat?
Over there. Look at that bird. Oh my goodness. I do have a little bit of back when they first announced this. I have our friend Kevin Lively has a video of him talking about this.
Please.
So take
it away, Kev.
We'll get to follow a skipper and his passengers as their journey goes awry. That's right, for the first time ever, the skipper role will not only be that of a live experience and witty guide, but also represented by a show figure within the attraction itself. In fact, the expedition will be up a tree after their sunken boat splits apart and ships board the wreckage, with monkey business ensuing. But that's not even half of the whole story. Fans of the Jungle Cruise attraction may recall some boats that used to make their way around the river, but haven't been seen for a while, especially the Mekong Maiden and the Quango Kate. Ever wonder what happened to them? Well, you might go wait when you find out. Ultimately, the jungle gets the last laugh. Imagineers.
So,
I love that.
Yeah. Little introduction of what they changed it for into. But yeah, I think that's the majority of what I have for the Trap Safari.
I got nothing left. We done.
Nothing.
No, I felt like, honestly, that scene it's got some great elements. It's got some hidden details. It's definitely more engaging than the previous one. And the backstories of each individual that is stuck up on that tree is, I think, fascinating. So it's a cool one. It's a good one. It's obviously one of the most iconic scenes in the Jungle Cruise. So,
well, I love how Mark Davis says it was like the first intentional laugh that Disneyland ever had. Like the first Disney parks laugh was this scene. Like how it's so critical in Disney's history that we had this laugh, and it was not even meant for the ride. It was meant as advertisement on the side of the railroad.
Imagine like you're getting that and you're like, oh man, this is going to be really funny. And you go on it and they're like, you'll notice that the African elephant, you're like, oh God, what am I on?
Oh yes. And we learned about lion ants tonight. Yes. We all got an education about.
I learned more about lion ants and why that's ridiculous.
The myrmecoleon?
They're myrmecoleon. That's the obvious. They were very scary in 1419. They were horrifying.
Well, most things were back then. So
yeah, like there was definitely. Some guy was just like, "What, Jim? How come you didn't get any food for anybody?" It was an antlion, a myrmecoleon. What?
Myrmecoleon.
A myrmecoleon was out there. A what? Jim, what? Okay. It's taller than me. I'm only 4'7", so this thing was 4'8", and it was the head of a lion. And it was like, but an ant, like the insect, but it was serious.
The picture you saw of like the Photoshop guy.
It's like horrible. It's ridiculous.
Thank you everybody for joining us for this episode of Distory with Kate and Kirk. We loved talking about Trap/Lost Safari with y'all and getting into the nitty-gritty details of all of these characters. Next week, we'll be heading into the Hippo Pool and Headhunter country and maybe beyond. We'll see how far we can go. But till then, have a wonderful weekend and we will see you later. Bye.
Bye.